Hey guys, Ralph here from the Endgame Investor with this month's edition of the Bitter Endgame Draft with Phil Lowe. Check out his channel in the description below or the comment that I pinned to the top. I haven't decided which one I'm going to do yet. I guess I'll decide once I publish this video or right before I publish it. And I just wanted to say I have the sniffles, so I might blow my nose once or twice, but I will put my microphone on mute. I probably have COVID. Don't worry. I've already called the CDC recommending global lockdowns, and I've put all of my children in quarantine. I've locked them in their room, and I will not let them out for an entire 2 weeks. And I'm shooting myself up with everything imaginable. I'm not really doing any of that, but that's what the medical protocol said to do about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So just remember, we were all used to be insane, and now people have forgotten about it, but I haven't, and neither should any of you. But I'm fine. Maybe I do have COVID, maybe I don't, and I'm going to live anyway. Phil had some topics to discuss. One of them is Gresham's Law, one of them is Elon Musk, and I forgot what the third one is, but he will introduce them right now.
The third one is the concept of the Coasian solution and spontaneous order. But we'll start with Elon Musk because that's the big zeitgeist of the past few days. And I just wanted to talk about how, despite his libertarian face, if you follow his Twitter feed, he sounds very liberty-minded. All of his businesses are major beneficiaries of the Cantillon effect. Like he is standing remarkably close to the money printer, and I think all of his businesses are major beneficiaries of government largesse. And so when the rumor behind the scenes is that despite saying he doesn't want any electric vehicle, he doesn't want any mandates or subsidies of any kind for anybody. Behind the scenes, people are saying he was pushing very hard for continued government electric vehicle mandates and more subsidies for electric vehicles. And all it would take is a quick look in the book of Tesla to know that Tesla is, a dead man walking. It is massively over leveraged. It's valued at like 10 times more than Ford and General Motors combined. The whole thing is just the money printer being poured into Tesla. And so Elon Musk is not really the wealthiest man in the world. He's an illusion of the wealth. He's the inflation receptacle
Right,
of the world.
right.
And that's where his thing come from. He's a genius at getting close to the money printer. Look, and Teslas are a cool car. We don't know what cars would look like on the gold standard. We have no idea because we're not on one. That's like trying to see into the fourth dimension. So we won't know what Elon Musk cars will look like on the gold standard until we return to one. Now, what's going to happen on the other side, I have no idea.
These instances in history where you have people that structurally benefit from whatever there is of tyranny. You can call big government tyranny by different degrees, but yes, Elon Musk is not exactly a good guy, and he shouldn't be trusted. Whenever he does something good, I will obviously applaud it, and I'm happy that he uses his resources for anything that's good, even if he doesn't intend for it to be good, even if it's just a cultural awakening that's all fake. And you could call Doge that. I never expected Doge to cut anything substantial.
Well, what's funny with Doge, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah, yeah.
What's funny with Doge is that the Doge was promising, well, Elon Musk really misrepresented what he was saying, and he could have presented this in a way that would have made a lot more sense. Doge was saying they're going to find fraud, which is people, dead people receiving Social Security checks, all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
The problem was you don't have to steal from the government. If you ask the government for money, they will give it to you. Like they will send it. The government programs. Having worked in the government, the bureaucracies in the government will order 1,000 golden toilets for their offices just because the budget says we have 1,000 golden toilets, or we have a budget for 1,000 golden toilets, so we're going to order 1,000 golden toilets, right?
We've installed a device that makes them swirl the correct American way. Sweet land of liberty, of the king.
The
Yeah.
corruption, the corruption is the government itself. It's not stealing from the government. That's the part where he misunderstood. If he wanted to say government efficiency, what he should have said was we're going to tackle these bloated budgets and expose them, right? Because all the stuff he exposed was the government functioning as the government is supposed to function. It's supposed to function. Um,
Hmm.
but there's no there's not much outright fraud apparently. Now maybe there is, and we're just not seeing it. But I'm not surprised that there's not outright fraud the way they were thinking of it, where people were stealing from the government coffers. The people who have access to the government coffers are legally using them to enrich themselves.
Yeah, that's how it is. I mean, I've come to the conclusion long ago, there's no such thing as stable equilibrium in government. It doesn't exist. Once you start it, you're already on the road to perdition. It's not going to stop. And the only thing you can do is hope that, but that at the point that it blows up, it's not bubblicious to the point that it's going to destroy all society, and you can start at a baseline once again. But whether you're talking about monetary corruption or just moral corruption because you're copying a culture that is inherently evil, and usually the money inflating the money leads to that, but it doesn't have to be the money. That's just like the most common cause of it. You can have an honest money and still have a corrupt society. It's possible. It's just harder. Um, but yeah, look, and you and I agree on this, I think 100%. There's no stopping the collapse. We just hope that whenever we fall, we won't eat each other, climbing back up or yeah, it's going to be scary what's happening, what's going to happen, and Elon Musk is not going to save us, and Trump isn't.
Yeah.
Nobody
Oh
is.
yeah, Trump's side is they're talking about seizing SpaceX. I mean, having the government seize SpaceX and seize Starlink now. I mean, that's just.
We're being run by Trump is a child. He's a
Yes, and so is
very
Elon.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, Elon's a child. He has like 13 kids with how many women? 12,
Yeah.
13 women. If you can't sustain a family together and live in equilibrium and homeostatic equilibrium with yourself and your drives, then you have not grown up. We are being run by children. These children, I mean, look, obviously Elon Musk and Trump are more comforting children than Kamala Harris and whoever would run her. Because then you're talking about like genuinely retarded people that are controlled by genuinely genius evil, whereas Trump doesn't have room to be completely overrun by evil because his ego is too big. So it's just whatever's in there. And that's better, I guess. But and I'm happy about it. But in such a cynical way, it's hard to even say that it's really happy. It's just like I don't even know what to call it. We're in such a clown world.
If Musk really wanted to destroy the system and bring in the libertarian utopia, all he has to do is pump his billions into gold, and then that would do it. That's
Yeah.
all we would have to do.
Actually, I had
He
I
doesn't
had
have to make it a political party. Yeah.
now that we're going on tangents for a second, I had there was an I said this, I tweeted this out, and somebody responded to me. That wouldn't do anything because that would only shift dollars around. So I responded, well, isn't everything shifting dollars around? I mean, when you dump dollars, you're shifting them to something else. It's not like they go out of existence. So what's your response to that? Like, why would buying gold or silver, why would if Elon Musk tweeted today, crypto is trash, buy gold and silver, why would that end the monetary system? Why wouldn't it just be shifting dollars around? I know the answer, but I think you can
Sure.
break it down better than I can.
The monetary system, the way the current monetary system sets up, it's like this rubber band between the statutory $42 an ounce. Is that wine? Are you
Hmm.
just,
It is.
you're like, oh, Phil's talking.
No, no, no.
That was
I
tip
just
one.
I did my first Tahara. Like I
Okay.
dressed a corpse by myself. So I kind of need to relax.
No
I was in
problem.
char I was in charge of it. I'm fine. I
I-
just I'm a little bit wound up,
It was just funny. You're like, all right, Phil, start talking.
yeah. Yeah.
We're going streaking! Yes! Hey, honey. Hey,
What the hell are you doing?
we're streaking.
All right.
It's
Anyway,
done. It's done.
yeah.
We're done. No more. Okay.
Yeah, pour another one. Why stop now? Um, what were we talking about? The what would happen if Elon Musk moved the $42 into gold? Or sorry, moved the 42. Told everyone to buy gold. So the statutory rate of gold is $42 an ounce. That's what the statutory rate of the gold is. The dollar is a note for 142 of an ounce of gold, and the market price of gold is right now $3,300. And they started like this, and then it's if you imagine a rubber band stretching between my two thumbs, it's getting more and more and more taut. And whenever that snaps, because this is not going to move. Whenever that snaps, this whole thing blows up. Now they were talking about the revalue, and the way Scott Bessent was describing it is, we're gonna move this over here, and the rubber band's gonna go slack, and there's not gonna be problems at all. That's not what would happen if they revalued. Sorry, if they revalued, the whole thing would move over this way. There might be a little bit of slack, but this tension is still going. Like they're still inducing more and more and more debt, which is stretching the current price of gold in dollar terms farther and farther away from its statutory price. So if Elon Musk, was like let's say he put $40 billion or whatever into gold and total all his followers to go do that same thing, this would just be poof, and it would snap much faster. So that's the quickest in the scope that we have of this 45-minute show. That's the scope. That's my explanation for it.
Yeah, okay, fine. So you wanted to go into that's my response. Yeah, we don't have much time.
Sure. Gresham's law.
Gresham's law, okay.
Yeah, okay. So Florida. Oh, are you in Florida? No, you're not in Florida right now, but you're going to Florida.
I'm in Florida in July, I will be. Yeah.
So Florida has just passed a law legalizing gold and silver as legal tender for purchases and debts. Go ahead.
Actually, they haven't.
Oh, they haven't.
I just talked to a guy. I'm going to publish this video. They haven't because technically any bar or coin that has any printing, any minting on it, even a serial number, is not considered legal tender because they put in a technicality to the law to make exceptions for any gold or silver that has any imprinting of anything on it at all.
So just a raw gold bar would be legal tender.
Yeah.
But not a gold bar with a serial number.
Right.
So if I took a blowtorch and melted off the serial number, now I've legal tenderized it. I've legally tenderized it.
Hey! Tenderizing meat. Oh, tenderizing meat again. Lots more tenderizing.
I don't know. I mean, I talked to the guy, and basically, practically nothing is legal tender. No gold or silver is legal tender in Florida, practically. But let's assume that we get over that next year because he talked about it. Let's assume that it is. Okay, and then what?
Okay, we can assume it does. It honestly doesn't matter for right now anyway. So the question was, if gold and silver are legal tender for that, so when you drive down to Florida, we should see merchants voluntarily exchanging in gold and silver and honest gold and silver credits, and that the U.S. Federal Reserve note in Florida should just be, floating in the wind. Nobody bothered to pick them up, littering the streets, and we should be in this libertarian utopia. But why not? Why is it when we drive down to Florida, everyone's still using dollars? There's really no fundamental change. And the reason is Gresham's law. And Thomas Gresham noticed in the 1500s, because he was with Queen Elizabeth I. So he noticed that they had debased the currency. So they had like a pound sterling or whatever it was that was 90% silver, and they debased it down to 50%. And what he noticed was that everyone had taken the old coins and they tucked them away in their treasure chests, and they had used the new coins for transactions because if you have a coin that is half the silver of the other coin, why would you spend the more valuable silver coin when you can just spend the less valuable coin? And because of legal tender. Now, in a truly free market, what's the merchant going to say? No, that has half the silver in it that one does. You need to give me two of those for every one of those. But because of legal tender laws, they both say 1 pound sterling. So the merchant has because he cannot reject one coin against another, he has no choice but to simply raise his prices, right? So he raises his prices to make sure he's going to get the silver he needs, and that pushes the good silver out, or the good coins out even farther, and more of the bad coins get spent in circulation. And we see this all the time. If you go into prisons where like cigarettes are currency, what do people do? When the good cigarettes come in, they hoard them, and they'll even take cigarettes they're going to use for currency. They'll knock out a little bit of the tobacco and like stuff in some dirt or something to fill it back in, and then use that for currency. So the cigarettes get devalued in prison. The coins get debased in the old world, and the people can participate in debasing coinage by clipping them. So you have a coin that says it's 1 ounce of silver or whatever fraction of silver, and people will get in there and clip off a little bit of the edges. They take off 5% or whatever. It's a little bit smaller. The government can participate by just minting coins with less silver in it. So they take a coin that used to have 90% silver and they put in 60% silver or whatever.
So interesting.
Go ahead.
In rabbinic law, there is a limit to Gresham's law. Because they're trying to figure out there's a mitzvah called ona'ah in transactions. It's a form of stealing through unfair transaction. It's like charging, I think it's like 16% over the market price for something. It's some arbitrary number. I don't know why it is that number. But it applies to the coin itself. So if a coin is more than 16% shachuk or rubbed out, it weighs 16% less than a full body coin, then you can't use it anymore as a coin in that transaction. It's not considered money. So they acknowledge Gresham's law, but they give a limit on it. It can only go this far, and then that's it. You have to get rid of the coin.
Only so much wear
yeah.
and tear.
Right.
Yeah. And in the modern application, so this isn't the traditional application. The modern application of Gresham's law, what they're doing is they're printing notes for coins they don't have. So they're saying, "Don't worry, I got all the gold. I got all the gold back there. I got 90 million tons. Trust me, bro. Just take my notes." And they're just printing more and more and more notes. Now, Gresham's law can be broken in only one of two ways. First is a reformer comes into the government, like Thomas Gresham, and he says, "Okay, we've made a mistake. We need to go back to full currency, and we need to eat the crash that comes from it, because a crash will come from it. We need to eat the crash and just plow through it. Everything will be okay. We'll get through it." The other option is total financial collapse. So the market says, "No, no mas. We cannot take these coins." And this is that usually because once Gresham's law started, it kind of keeps going until you end up with no silver in the coinage at all. And then once there's no silver or no money in the coinage at all, then the coins lose contact with reality itself. And then nothing can be done to keep them with some sort of face value of any kind. And for a historical note of this, during the French hyperinflations, the penalty for refusing an assignant note was death. So if the merchant did not take an assignant, you could go to the French Revolutionary Council and say, "This guy's not taking my money," and the penalty was Madame Guillotine. And still the merchants wouldn't take it, because their choice was to risk the guillotine or to guarantee you're going to die by starvation because you're taking worthless notes. Because the notes themselves, this is what a lot of people they don't understand. When a currency hyperinflates, it's not that it's worth a little bit. It's worth literally nothing. It's worthless. It's completely worthless. It's undefined. And so what you're saying, when you're trying to pass off hyperinflated currency, what you're saying is, "Give me that for free." And merchants will not do that. They can't.
It's like telling a mathematician, like, either you divide by 0 or I will shoot you in the head. And they'll be like,
Exactly. You're trying to divide by 0 in the real world. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules? Market zero. You think I'm around here? Market zero.
And so those are the only two solutions. I was hoping the new Trump administration was going to come in, and they were toying with auditing Fort Knox, and they were mentioning the gold standard and stuff. I don't think any of that's going to happen, unfortunately. I think we're gonna have the second one. Honestly, at this point, we're so close to the final total rejection of the currency anyway. The size of the crash is not that different. But it would have been nice if we had some public words of like, "Hey, everybody, get a little silver. Things are about to get gnarly."
Yeah, we're not going to get that. But I have felt a small awakening of people into silver and gold and more interested in it. I'm seeing that in my community. People have the Israelis have just started to discover me. I think that's because I've had a few Israeli Hebrew interviews with some uh, Israeli dissidents recently, and my boondock uh, equivalent of Montana community have suddenly figured out that I actually have a following in there. Maybe that's why they didn't react when I yelled at them. Well, on that, we Phil and I talked about that before. It had to do with COVID. I'm also like a local star here for standing up to COVID regulations, so they know me about that from years ago. But anyway, yeah, Gresham's law is not going to be overcome by anything other than hyperinflation.
Right. And I just want to say, after Gresham's law, without fail, the only result of the end of Gresham's law is a return to honest currency. It happens without fail. The amount of intervention to try and stop it only increases the suffering. So the best thing to do is just to rush back to gold and silver as fast as possible, and hopefully the government collapses to the point where it can't interfere with the interaction between voluntary exchange of gold and silver between people. And
Right.
that's pretty much all I have to say
Yeah,
on that.
this also brings to mind why I'm so optimistic about this end game. I'm paraphrasing Brett Weinstein. He's one of the only podcasts that I actually listen to. I listen to a few others, Walter Kern and Matt Taibbi, America This Week, and Brett Weinstein is pretty much what I listen to. And he was talking about, he used the term end of dominion when he was talking about like messianic times when humans suddenly realize that there's nothing else to take over and we have to like all get along with each other or the planet's going to be destroyed. He's talking about the end of dominion. And this end game would really be the first time that a monetary collapse includes the entire planet. It's not like Rome collapses and then the transactions are still going on normally over in Persia, or something like that, or one country isolated. It's really all of us at once are going to experience this. No one's going to escape it. And on the one hand, that's terrifying. On the one hand, it's also very cathartic because maybe if we all experience it together, maybe we can wriggle out of it in a way that wouldn't require a zombie apocalypse. I know we will. I'm not saying maybe there will be, as I don't think there will be. I'm
I
very
don't think there.
optim I'm very optimistic. I think it will be hard, but I think we're going to get out of it, and I think we're going to throw away this AI thing. We could even agree on settling at a level of technology that won't danger the planet. I don't know how that's going to happen, but then again, I see these AI advances and I see the stupidity that it accelerates among our species, and I'm thinking like we can't handle any more technology really, or else we just won't exist anymore. And I don't know how it's going to stop, but I think it's going to include something like that. Like the Amish were on to something. They might have stopped earlier than we were comfortable with, but the idea of okay, we have a level of technology, we'll stop here and that's it. It's not entirely crazy.
Or at least be very measured on when you bring technology into your group.
Yeah.
Maybe you can let it in, we'll let electricity in, but slowly, and let people really think about it for a while, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway,
And yeah, the third one was spontaneous order emerging out of the endgame chaos. That actually ties in. This is why I'm optimistic as well. And this is known as the Coasian solution. So Ronald Coase noticed, this was in the 40s or 50s, I think.
he's
But
a
he noticed,
libertarian, right?
yes. I'm gonna explain it. The Coasian solution is once property rights are established, the economically most beneficial outcome will occur, regardless of the distribution of those property rights. So he noticed it with farmers and cattle ranchers. So the cattle ranchers need to drag their cattle all over God's green earth to graze them, and sometimes they have to march through farmers' fields. And of course, cattle marching through farmers' fields is detrimental to the farmer. So the question was, who has the property rights? Does the cattleman have the right to take his cows through the farmer's field to his pasture on the other side? And does the farmer have the right to protect his crop from it? I don't remember which one, but I don't remember which one actually happened. But the Coasian solution is it doesn't matter. if the value of the farm is, X and the value of the cattle is Y, then if X is greater than Y and the property rights belong to the farmer, then the cattle rancher will simply not bring his, the farmer says, if you go into my property, I'm going to shoot your cows and sue you, something, right? And the law has backed him up. Then the cattleman will simply not bring his cows to the other side of the pasture, crossing the farmer's field. If Y is greater than X, however, so the cows are more valuable than the field, and the property rights belong to the farmer, then the cattleman will pay the farmer to destroy part of his field. He said, "Look, I have to get these cows are worth this much. I have to get them to the other side of the pasture so they can finish their grazing. And so I'm sorry, we're gonna transfer. I would like to buy or rent part of your field just to bring my cows across it." And the farmer will say yes because he's paying more than that, whatever that corn or whatever that wheat is worth.
Okay, so he's saying essentially that there is a moral right and wrong. There is a right answer and a wrong answer morally, but it will be worked out between them based on the values of each of their
yes, each of their utilities, each utility functions. So if the property rights belong to the rancher, right? So the rancher has the two farms, and he's the government says that he is allowed to bring his cows across this field to his other pasture, and the farmer may not impede him. If the cows are worth more than the farm, than the grain that's being destroyed, the farmer's just going to let the field. He's going to let that part of the field go. He's going to say, I don't, whatever, you take it, I don't care. If the grain is worth more than the cows, then the farmer's going to pay the cattle rancher to figure out another way. He's going to say, "Look, this grain is very valuable. I can't have you destroying it, so I will pay you some of this grain, and you take your cows the long way around, or we'll build a what do you call those? A sky bridge? What are those? A pedestrian? We'll build a pedestrian bridge over this part of the field. Whatever. We'll figure out a solution so that you can bring your cows over." And the point of this is, all of these solutions are peaceful, and they're all maximally beneficial to both the cattleman and the farmer. Doesn't matter who gets the property right. Now, the farmer in this scenario, the farmer absolutely prefers that he has the property rights, and the cattleman absolutely prefers that he has the property rights. But it doesn't matter.
Wait, hold on. Wait. I'm misunderstanding something. One of them does have the property rights. The farmer.
One of them does, but it doesn't matter which one.
If he homesteaded the crops, the land belongs to him. The question is he willing to let the farmer cross or not for a fee?
Sure.
That's the only question.
I'm not sure. This had something to do with like obscure Montana rules, where a cattleman is allowed to bring his cows to different areas of his own pasture or something. Even, and there was some gray area over whether he was allowed to cross another man's field or something. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I would think that my land is my land, but we pay taxes on land we own, and if we don't pay those taxes, then we no longer own that land. So it's not as if we're in some ideal land.
I think you can make that. You can make this much more succinct. It can be made much more succinct by just saying, look, if the cattleman has to cross the farmer's fields, he's got to pay above the market price of the grain that he's going to destroy.
That's the Coasian solution right there.
That's all.
Well, what I'm saying is what happens if the property rights are opposite? What happens if the cattleman does? So let me bring this into an in-game scenario.
Wait, hold on. How could it possibly be that the cattleman has rights to land that the farmer has homesteaded? You don't homestead land by having cattle graze on it.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that specific example. All I know is the hypothetical was it doesn't matter if the cattleman has the rights or the farmer has the rights.
Okay. Anyway,
so I could look into this to get back to you. But let me bring this to an in-game scenario. So I want you to imagine there's the dollar's dead. Everything's collapsed and society's really having trouble functioning. So there's a town here. I want you to imagine a town over here, dear viewer, and there's going to be farms over here, dear viewer, and there's a road that runs between the two. So the farmers need to get their crops to town, and the town needs to get the stuff they make in the town out to the farmers so they can trade, and so civilization can continue. Now, a group of highwaymen set up shop on the highway in between the two, and they start, whatever trucks come through, they shoot the driver and they take all the stuff and run off into the forest. So the town says, "Okay, we have a problem here. We are not getting our food," and the farmers too. The farmers have that same problem. So the farmers in the town, they agree, we're going to send out a posse and we're going to go remove those highwaymen from the road. And so the town and the farmers get together, they make a posse and they go try and clear out the highwaymen. Let's say the highwaymen win the battle. So, they have this gunfight in the woods, the highwaymen beat off the posse and they maintain control of the road. What is the next step that the town does? The town sends a representative to the highwaymen and says, "Look, the farmers are going to stop sending the trucks through the town. They're going to stop because you're killing them and you're taking all their stuff and you're taking all our stuff. And so we're all going to starve to death. We're all going to die. And the farmers are going to stop sending us food. And this road is going to disappear on us. So why, instead of killing us, why don't we appoint you security ministers of this road, and you can charge a toll, and we'll pay you, whatever the going rate is. We'll pay you a small fee, and you can protect the road, and you can make sure the stuff gets back and forth, and therefore, the road becomes a toll road, basically."
Ladies and gentlemen, that is how government is established.
Well, okay. So the highwaymen have established this is not traditional property rights, but the highwaymen have established their property rights by being physically there and not allowing anyone to kick them off. Now, let's say the town wins. So the town and the farmers are organized a posse. They kill most of the highwaymen, and the rest run off into the deep forest. And so now the town says, "Okay, well, we've cleared them off, but this road is obviously not secure because highwaymen are going to come back if we all just go home. So we're going to need to establish a garrison here, and to pay for this garrison, we need to have a fee. We're going to charge a toll."
Oh, so you're saying it's the same result no matter which way?
Yeah, it's the same result no matter what. You get a toll road. The same result, no matter what happens, is you get a road that is secure, that is patrolled by armed security men. And you have to pay a fee to use that road to get your goods and services safely through. Now, as the situation improves, right? So initially, the situation is when you go to pay your toll, this drugged up teenager comes out with a semi-automatic or fully automatic gun and is waving the gun in your face. "So you need to pay me this toll," right? So the town, whoever the people paying the toll are like, "Look, guy, stop this. We're going to pay the toll, but you need to calm down." And the brigand leader or the guy who's running the militia says, "Okay, you know what? These guys are kind of loose cannons, and honestly, they're better served doing other things anyway. So we'll get this old retired guy, we'll give him a yellow vest and a little cap, and we'll put him on the toll road, and we'll make it all friendly, nice and service. And then if nobody pays, then we'll send the crazy teenage guy with the machine gun out to, deal with any people not paying the toll." Right. So eventually, what do you end up with? You end up with a civilized toll road with a nice gentleman who takes your fee, and you drive along secure road between the farm and the town, regardless of who wins. That's the Coasian solution. The danger. So the maximum danger in this world is the world where the property rights are disputed. So when it's not clear who has the property rights, that's when people get out their guns and go and shoot at each other. This is the same thing in a town with a mafia, right? In New York City, when there's a mafia, when there's one family running everything, or the five families all collude and they get together and they agree not to shoot each other, that's fine. Suddenly, the Latin Kings roll up and they want a piece of the town, and now the mafia and the Latin Kings are in active gun battles on the streets of New York, shooting at each other, and that's the period of most disruption, most violence. So the important thing in the end game is to either don't lose property rights, so maintain the property rights. If the government completely collapses, then you, dear viewer, whoever, you should work to reestablishing property rights as fast as possible, regardless of who will get those property rights. The only thing that matters is that those property rights exist, because if those property rights exist, then you can negotiate and you can find the economically advantageous solution without having to fight your way in open gun battles between the farm and the town to get your crops to market.
Okay, so this is a chicken and egg problem.
It is counterintuitive. It's absolutely counterintuitive, but that is the Coasian solution.
So I'm not saying counterintuitive. I'm saying it's chicken and egg.
Okay.
Because in order to agree on who has property rights, you have to have the guns to back it. In order to agree on property rights, you either need brute force and like a stable dominion among people with somebody who has all the guns, some kind of Habetian or Hobbesian, however you want to pronounce it.
Hobbesian tyranny kind of thing.
Yeah, a Hobbesian solution to this whole thing. Or You need to have some kind of a system that is revered by the masses and they defer to it regardless of whether they end up on top or not. Now, I don't think that America had that there's enough reverence of the Constitution and the American legal system among the public for any of them to give a shit about who, according to American halacha or American judicial whatever determined by a bunch of judges that everybody already hates anyway, who's going to have the rights to who? They're not going to respect it. And even here in Israel, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, there was a protest against the Supreme Court in Israel, and then a window was broken by something in the right wing crowd. Like we're not at the point here in this country where we're going to kill each other. I think we stopped doing that around Hanukkah. That was the last time we really like went at it and like killed each other in mass. And there's a reason we made that a holiday. We're like, okay, that's it. Um, but uh, so here there's going to be an end game too. We're going to have to fall back on something that most of the society agrees and reveres. And whoever is the arbiters of this system that is so much older than the modern state of Israel, I think we have enough stability, enough reverence for that system to have it barely hold on to some kind of a centralized control in terms of ideas, not in terms of authority figures, but authority figures will come from there. Determine on who can best interpret that system or who has the most smarts or who knows the system the best. I'm talking about rabbis, but who know the system. I don't see how America is going to be able to agree on who gets what based on the Supreme Court or some kind of court system or some kind of vague cultural value on the revolution of 1776 because there's no connection to it. You can have it in certain states. You got maybe Montana, Nebraska, maybe Texas, Wyoming, who knows? But like you can have isolated states that will stay alive. I don't think New York or California are going to make it.
Well, in that situation, it's like I think New York's like court system is not going to be functional, right? So it's going to be. I hate to scare anybody in New York, but I think it's going to be like, okay, the Latin Kings run this neighborhood, and the Crips run this neighborhood, and within these neighborhoods, there's established law, and then the law of the Latin Kings, the Crips.
Yeah.
But joking aside, they actually do. I mean, the mafia historically did provide protection. I mean, part of that protection was against them if you don't pay, but a lot of that protection was also they kept the drugs out of the neighborhood. If you had if you were a shop owner and there was a bum outside just shooting heroin and panhandling right outside your shop and scaring the customers, you called the police and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's a public street. He has a right to be there." You call, Tony Knuckles, he shows up and, he encourages the bum to go shoot up somewhere else, right? And it's just the way it is. So they will provide protection for those areas. I promise. They are of that, those are the people who live in that neighborhood. Their families are there. Their people are there. The danger is this border between the two. Then it's gonna, that's gonna look like the Apache and the Comanche, a border dispute like that. I mean, that could be. Go ahead.
So Phil, this is why I get nauseous sometimes thinking about the end game. Even assuming the best case scenario that I'm going to be phenomenally wealthy, I'm gonna have to expend capital in such a way that it maximizes security over the greatest area of my influence in the most efficient way possible. And I have no freaking clue how to do that.
Well,
Because
honestly,
we're gonna have to be the mafia. We're gonna have
yeah,
to be the fair mafia, and we're gonna have to impute. No, impute. We're gonna
yeah,
impint. We're gonna have to spread. I don't know the word. We're gonna have to divulge our values across the widest area of our influence, and then hook up with the next stacker across in the next neighborhood, and then try to bridge something, some kind of cooperation, and then build some kind of
yeah.
thing.
So you can't possibly predict this. I mean, if things get really bad, then the heroes that emerge are going to be people you don't expect. The Mike, your son's high school gym teacher, might end up being, the warlord of your neighborhood, and you have to go before him, and you go, oh, great Mike, Lord of the cul-de-sac at the end of Cinnamon Tree Lane, ruler of all he surveys. I come to you with a property dispute. I bought this lady's house with silver, and here's the contract, and she refuses to leave and won't pay me rent. Please settle this dispute amongst us. Oh, great one, right? And then, Lord Mike is going to settle the dispute. Now, if he doesn't respect the property rights, then again, property rights are the only thing that separates us from the state of nature. If there's no property rights, then we are in the zombie apocalypse. And the property rights can be established just by Lord Mike. Lord Mike and his goons, and maybe you're contributing to Lord Mike's defense fund with your silver stacks. But Lord Mike is going to say, okay, you have not, here's the contract, you have not paid it. And the results may be draconian from the cushy life we're used to. Maybe one of you, maybe you or the other one gets stoned to death or something, things get very Old Testament. I don't know. But he will establish property. A good ruler, that's the only thing a ruler actually does is establish and defend property rights. If he fails to do that, if he says, I don't care about your problems, go do something else. Now he's made an enemy of you. The town views him as unable to, dispense wisdom. That's why
Right.
King Solomon is so revered, right? He was able to accurately dispense wisdom and, establish property rights between people and, figure out who is the rightful owner of said property, like the splitting of the baby in the famous story.
Right.
That's what makes a good ruler. So if Lord Mike might turn out to be a terrible ruler, in which case, some point or another, he's going to be replaced by, Lord Chuck.
All right. So on that note, what historical precedent, and assuming I take certain parts of the Old Testament historically, not all of it, but this part I do take historically. What was the interval between total chaos and centralized functional government in the Old Testament? Well, at the end of the book of Judges in Shoftim, you had a story. The ruling guy was Samson. We just read about him last week because he's a Nazarite, and
He's the one with the hair.
yeah, he's the one with the hair, and he's a Nazarite. He was told that his mother could not drink any alcohol even when she was pregnant with him, because imagine if you have a personality like Samson and he's allowed to drink alcohol, it could get extremely dangerous. You don't want that happening. So this guy with superhuman strength, and there are genetic disorders that we know of that cause the muscles to have like 5 times the strength of an average human. These things exist in genetics. He was basically in charge of the country, and that was like peak anarchy. From that point to King Saul, which it wasn't exactly centralized government. He was like the first instance of that. But then you had King David, who really centralized everything. I think it was about maybe 50, 60 years, right? From total anarchy to centralized functional government. 50, 60 years. And I'm saying, but back in the Old Testament, communication was much slower and technology was much less. So I'm hoping we could speed that up by a factor maybe like 5 or 6. Maybe we would have some kind of like uncomfortable chaos, maybe for maximum 10 years. I hope much, much less, but I think it's gonna be at least a year. And if we can get through that, then maybe we can get to some kind of end of dominion where people are just in an equilibrium, and it might require some kind of change in human nature, not to be administered by people, but who knows? I'm kind of I don't know what's beyond the end game. So I see the closer that we get to it, now I'm starting to think like, what's the world gonna be like afterward? I really don't know.
Horizon. Yeah, it's an event horizon. Like you can see the event horizon. You can see we're rocketing towards it, but you can't see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. We can only hypothesize, right? And we're, here we are, and I'm hypothesizing spontaneous order has always emerged in the past. It will always emerge in the future. The only question is how long does it take to emerge, and how chaotic. And a lot of that's going to depend on where you are as well. I mean, it's going to, there might be some areas that have a zombie apocalypse and a lot of areas that don't. So
Yeah.
just be, if you're a stacker, just be prepared to move if you need to. Be prepared to take over to be Lord Mike. I mean, it might be you, right?
Yeah.
You're the one who's going to have all the silver, and if you buy some lady's house and she is trying to because the government's completely down and she's trying to dishonor the contract, then you need to show up with Tony Knuckles and say, look, you signed this paper, and this is my house now, and Mr. Knuckles here is going to show you that you're not living here anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
No.
Yeah, I mean that's the last thing I'll say, and then we'll sign off. That's the beauty of decentralization is that not one single thing happens. There's not going to be one zombie apocalypse where everybody disintegrates into nothing and just total chaos everywhere. There's going to be some zombie apocalypses in the big metropolitan areas, in the big Arab cities, in like Cairo where everyone's starving, and
God help us.
who knows, in Saudi Arabia where they're not going to have any water, in San Francisco, in LA, in New York, in Chicago, probably. I'm not wishing any of these places any ill, but like if you're gonna tell me like I'm gonna put money on where the zombie apocalypse centers are gonna be, I'd say those places,
Yeah,
Tokyo,
Mexico City,
those kinds
Beijing.
of
Yeah.
things. Yeah, the big
Yeah. Oh, what's
Chinese.
that? Lagos.
Oh,
Lagos is a
Lagos, is
dumpster.
that in Cambodia?
No, Nigeria. It's the capital city of
Nigeria.
Nigeria. It's a dumpster fire of a city. So
Okay. So yeah, these are where the zombie apocalypses are going to be, but there's not going to be one single centralized zombie apocalypse because we're all going to be decentralized. We'll see what happens afterwards. Good luck. Good luck to everyone. We've got a little bit of time. I hope I get home in time. I think I will. It's very, very difficult living in between two worlds where you're living in one world and convinced that it's going to end, but trying to not take yourself too seriously so that you actually live in it. And you gotta trust in a higher power because there's nowhere else to function. That's it.
there you go. All right, Rafi. On that cheerful note,
It is cheerful. It's cheerful. I'm
it
cheerful.
is. It is. It is. It is cheerful in
Okay.
a way.